What's up, everybody? This is Tech G back with another video to help you successfully pass the CompTIA Network Plus 009 certification. So let's get into it. In today's digital world, securing a network is just as crucial as setting it up. And cyber threats, they continue to evolve, making it imperative for IT professionals to apply effective network security measures. And the CompTIA Network Plus exam emphasizes the importance of securing network infrastructure using a combination of device hardening techniques, network access control, key management, security rules, and zones. In this video, we're going to explore these concepts in detail, providing practical guidance on implementing them in real-world scenarios. All right, so let's begin with device hardening. So device hardening, this refers to the process of securing network devices by reducing their attack surfaces. And this involves disabling unnecessary services, securing passwords, and implementing best security practices. So let's talk about disabling unused ports and services. So many network devices, including switches, routers, and firewalls, they come with default settings that enable multiple ports and services, some of which may not be necessary for the organization. And attackers, they can exploit open ports to gain unauthorized access, making it critical to disable any that are not in use. So here are the steps to disable unused ports and services. So first thing you want to do is identify the unused ports. So you want to use network scanning tools like Nmap to detect open ports. Then you want to disable in-device configuration. So for switches and routers, you want to use commands like interface gigabit Ethernet 01 shutdown and exit. And then you want to use firewalls to block ports. So you want to implement firewall rules to restrict access to unnecessary ports. And then you want to monitor for changes. So you want to use security monitoring tools to detect if a previously disabled port becomes active. Next, you want to change your default password. So many network devices, they come with default username and passwords, which are well documented and easily found by attackers. So changing default credentials, this is one of the simplest yet most effective security measures. And here are the best practices for password management. So you want to use strong passwords with a mix of uppercase, lowercase numbers, and special characters. You want to implement multi-factor authentication where possible. You want to avoid reusing passwords across multiple devices, and you want to regularly update passwords and store them securely by using a password manager. All right, next let's talk about network access control, and this enforces security policies to prevent unauthorized devices from accessing the network, and this helps in mitigating threats like rogue devices and unauthorized access. So let's go ahead and talk about port security. So port security, this restricts devices that can connect to switches by limiting MAC addresses, and this is particularly useful in preventing unauthorized devices from connecting to a network. And here are some of the basic steps to go about implementing port security. So the first thing you want to do, you want to enable port security, which you can do so by typing in these types of commands right here. And then you want to only allow specific MAC addresses, which, as you can see right here, here's some commands to help you kind of illustrate that. And then after you do all of that, you want to monitor and respond to violations. So you want to use logging mechanisms to track security violations when they occur. All right, next let's talk about 802.1x authentication. So 802.1x, this is a network access control protocol that authenticates devices before allowing them network access. And it is commonly used in enterprise environments to secure wired and wireless networks. And the components of 802.1x are as follows. So you have what is called the supplicant, and this is the device that's requesting access. You have what is called the authenticator. This is the switch or wireless access point that is controlling access. And then you have the authentication server, and this is a radius server that verifies credentials. Next is MAC filtering. So MAC filtering, this restricts network access to specific devices based on their MAC addresses. And to configure MAC addresses for routers, you want to navigate to the security settings and manually enter the allowed MAC addresses. You want to use commands on managed switches to allow only specific MAC addresses. Then you want to combine with VLAN segmentation to further enhance security. All right, so let's move on and talk about key management. So effective key management, this is essential for encrypting communications and securing sensitive data. And the best practices for key management are as follows. So you want to use secure key exchange protocols like Diffie-Hellman and RSA. You want to rotate encryption keys periodically to minimize risk. You want to store keys securely using hardware security modules or key management systems. And then you want to implement access controls to restrict key usage to authorized personnel. All right, next let's talk about security rules. So security rules, they help enforce access control, filter malicious content, and protect network resources. And within that, we have what is called an access control list. And this defines rules that allow or deny traffic based on IP addresses, protocols, or ports. And an example of an ACL configuration would be to deny all traffic except web and SSH access, as you can see on your screen right here in these commands. And then we have what is called URL filtering, and this restricts access to websites based on policies. And the implementation steps are as follows. So you want to use a firewall or proxy servers to block harmful domains. You want to employ DNS filtering services like OpenDNS or Cloudflare. And then you want to set category-based restrictions to prevent access to malicious sites. Next, we have content filtering, and this prevents access to harmful or inappropriate content, which improves network security and productivity. And the methods for content filtering are as follows. So you want to use next generation firewalls with deep packet inspection. You want to deploy secure web gateways to inspect web traffic, and you want to implement email filtering to prevent phishing attacks. All right, so let's move on and talk about zones. So network segmentation into trusted and untrusted zones. This helps in isolating sensitive assets and reducing attack services. So a trusted zone, this consists of internal controlled network resources, while an untrusted zone includes external networks like the internet. And the best practices for secure zone management are as follows. You want to use firewalls to enforce security policies between zones. You want to restrict direct access from untrusted to trusted zones. You want to implement intrusion prevention systems to detect and mitigate threats. Then we have what is called a screen subnet, or a DMZ, and that stands for demilitarized zone. And this is a network segment that hosts publicly accessible services like web and email filters. And to configure a DMZ, you want to deploy firewalls. So you want to place a firewall between the internal network and DMZ, and another between the DMZ and the internet. Then you want to restrict traffic flow. So you want to use ACLs to limit traffic between the DMZ and the internal network. And then you want to monitor the logs. So you want to regularly inspect firewall logs for any suspicious activity. All right, so in conclusion, implementing robust network security measures, this is essential to protecting digital assets and maintaining a secure IT environment. And by applying device hardening techniques, enforcing network access control policies, managing encryption keys effectively, defining strict security rules, and segmenting networks into zones, IT professionals can significantly enhance network security. And these principles are fundamental to the CompTIA Network Plus exam and serve as a crucial skill for real-world network security implementation. And by mastering these techniques, IT professionals, they can build and maintain secure networks that withstand evolving cyber threats. All right, so let's do some check on learning. So the first question is, a network administrator is securing a switch by limiting access to specific MAC addresses on each port. Which network security feature is being implemented? Would this be 802.1x authentication, port security, network access control, or access control lists? And the correct answer is this will be port security. So port security, this is a feature that restricts a switch port to allow only specific MAC addresses to connect, preventing unauthorized devices from accessing the network. And this is an effective way to mitigate threats such as MAC address spoofing. Next question. An organization wants to ensure that only authenticated users can access its corporate network before obtaining an IP address. Which security mechanisms should be implemented? Would this be MAC filtering, an access control list, 802.1x authentication, or URL filtering? And this will be 802.1x authentication. So 802.1x, this is a port-based authentication protocol used for network access control. It requires a client device to authenticate before being granted network access, and it is often integrated with Radius or other types of authentication servers. And our final question: a company wants to prevent employees from accessing non work related websites while on the corporate network. Which security measures should be used? Would this be content filtering, key management, port security, or a screen subnet? And the correct answer is this will be content filtering. So, content filtering, this is used to restrict access to specific websites or types of content based on predefined rules. And this can be implemented through firewalls, proxy servers, or security appliances to block access to unauthorized or harmful websites.